Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. I'm here with Douglas Wilson.
You are indeed.
And he, as you can see behind us, has more books, maybe even than he knows what to do with.
That is the case, yeah.
How did you get into this?
Oh, it's so far in the mists of the past that it somehow it's difficult to define exactly how it happened. I was always a lover of books. My father always made sure new books were coming into the household. He subscribed to a couple different book clubs. And I remember waiting as a child for these little cardboard box packages to come. And I'd open them up and there would be the International Collector's Library edition of Jules Verne's Mysterious Island.
Oh.
And I would open it up and I would read it. And over the next 2 years, I'd read it 4 or 5 more times.
Really?
It became a favorite book of mine. And he subscribed to the best of children's books. And he subscribed to the landmark books. So all these books were coming in, and I had a little bookcase in my room. And when I started to get a little older, a teenager, and had a little disposable income from a grocery store job I started going to bookstores.
Oh.
Not so much your standard bookstore, but more like Salvation Army and Goodwill stores that had a book section, because the books there were 50 cents and $1, and I could afford. I get a lot of bang for my buck, and even with that, I was spending more money than it was wise to do. At a certain point, when I was done with college, I was still living at home, and I wanted to pay my parents' room and board. And I had to be very careful not to spend my room and board money on books. So I began to go out with this bookseller who I met in my American history class. And he said, there's something called scouting in the book trade. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, we're going to Salvation Army today, and you're going to see books you want to buy for yourself. But you'll also see other books that look like good books, but you're not just personally interested in Byzantine history, for instance. And so you can buy that book for the same 50 cents, and you can go to a bookstore. There's a lot of them around the University of Chicago area, and they might give you $5, $6 for that book if it's a really good book. And think of all the books you can buy for 50 cents that you want to keep for $5 or $6. So I began doing that, and I became a book scout. And after a while, there were certain dealers who I felt were being very fair with me, and I got a very good payment, and I was finding out what they wanted, and I was bringing it to them. And one day, this old coot, or at least I saw him as that. I think he was about 56 years old. But
right.
I thought he was an old coot at the time because I was 22 or something like that. And he asked me if some personal questions about what I was doing. And I told him, well, I'm kind of drifting now. I trained to be an art teacher, but there's no teaching jobs available, and I have to sort of maintain myself. So I got a job working in retail credit in a department store. And I'm pretty good at it, but I sure don't want to spend my life doing that. So I said, I love books, and I have an artistic penchant. So I'm going next week to interview with a bookbindery, and I think I might become a bookbinder. So, oh, that's interesting. And so a little time passed. I would visit him periodically with my thrift store finds, and next time I went in, he asked me how the bookbindery thing had gone. I said, well, the guy who was interviewing me is a guy who got the one available apprenticeship in bookbinding in Chicago probably in the next 20 years. And he wasn't going to encourage me to take his position. So I think that's a dead end. He said, well, when you think of it, why be a bookbinder if you can be a person that hires bookbinders? And I said, what do you mean? He said, how would you consider being my apprentice? And I thought a little bit. He claims that when he told me that, this is Mr. Joseph O'Gara, he said that when he made that offer, I jumped up 2 feet in the air and clicked my heels. I don't remember doing that. But it certainly
Maybe
was,
he did that
I don't know.
because he found somebody.
He found a innocent mark
Right.
to actually pass the torch on to. But he had some surgery at that time, and I think a hernia surgery, and he was getting older, 56 years old after all. And he felt he needed some young blood in the business. So he had been taken on as an apprentice in his younger years, and he decided now's the time for him to take on an apprentice. So I started up, and that was 53 years ago, and I've never looked back.
Whoa, so bookbinding, but how did that get you into running a bookstore?
Well,
A used bookstore
well,
at that.
as I mentioned, maybe I was unclear. I didn't
No,
get
it's
an
all right.
apprentice as a bookbinder. I walked into this bookstore that I was scouting for,
I got it.
and Mr. O'Gara was there, and he said, "Well, how did it work out?" I said, "No, the one position is already taken. I'm not going to get it." He said,
So
"Well,
he said, work for me.
why not be a bookseller?" Yeah.
And you said yes.
I said yes. I really didn't. Actually, I went home, as I recall, and I asked my dad, "Dad, what do you think?" And he said, I came up in the Depression, and I had to take any job I could get. And I'm doing what I'm doing now, and I'm really good at it, but I don't love my work. And it sounds like what you're being offered is an opportunity to not only make a living and have a profession, but to do something you also love. And he said, if I could have had that chance, I would have jumped at it, and I would advise you to do the same. And so I went back to Mr. O'Gara, and I accepted his offer. And like I say, it's 53 years ago.
But this isn't where you did Mr. O'Gara's assistance.
Not this physical location. Bookstores are funny. Mr. O'Gara used to say that booksellers are like gypsies. We move from one place to another, and what moves us is affordable rent.
Yes.
If you're in Chicago and you get a good place that's sort of edgy and maybe the building needs a little fixing up or something like that, you can afford the rent. If, however, it gentrifies and you start having jewelry stores and furriers moving in and paying high rents, you very quickly cannot compete with that. So you move to the edge again. And so we have moved around several times. Most of my career, though, was when Mr. O'Gara had established in Hyde Park. And in fact, it's when he was moving from a smaller rental space that he shared with another bookseller to a very, at that point, I perceived as a large building that he would have all by himself. And I helped facilitate that move, and that's when I came on as an apprentice with him. And he was my mentor, and he taught me the trade. The apprenticeship period was 5 years, as I recall, and at the end of 5 years, he offered me a stake in the business, a certain number of shares, and the contract was such that at the end of every year, if there were profits, and there usually were, that I would be contractually bound to take that money and buy more shares. And so little by little over the years, I was able to buy him out to the point where he was ready to go. I had bought the last of the shares, and all of a sudden, for better or worse, this was my thing.
Your thing.
So
And that was in Chicago.
I was in Chicago. I was in Chicago in Hyde Park, right on 57th Street down from the University of Chicago for 40 years. And in 2013, things were sort of going south. The rent was high, the city taxes were high, the university had changed policy for their own advantage that just so happened worked against the smaller businesses they were buying these buildings on the edge of the lake, a mile and a half down 57th Street, and they were converting them into dorms. It was a little bit too far for the students to walk, so they started up a bus service. And so all of a sudden our foot traffic was gone.
Disappeared.
I could put in the prettiest windows with the most tempting books, and there'd never be anybody walking by to see it. So the bookstores, the restaurants, everybody was being hurt by that. So we hung on for a few years and tried to hope that it would get better, but it didn't. So when the opportunity came to rent this building, we decided to jump for it.
How did you know about this area?
Well, we lived out here. At a certain point when my wife and I got married, she had come from Northwest Indiana, and she wanted to live near her mother, so we had bought a house in Chesterton. At that point, I had to accept and commit to the idea that I was going to have to drive.
Be a commuter.
Be a commuter for the first time in my life. I'd lived in Hyde Park, a few blocks from the shop, for all those 40 years, but here now I had to drive an hour each way. And it was daunting, but to live in a nice community like this, my wife and I planned to have a family and to raise our kids out here.
This being Chesterton.
Being Chesterton, yeah. It was very, very appealing, but I had to make the sacrifice of 2 hours out of every day and just travel. So we did that, and
when did you open your bookstore here?
2013, it just became very clear that it wasn't really going to take an upswing in Hyde Park for us. And one day, we were sort of vaguely looking for the idea of moving out here, moving the bookstore, though it was a daunting idea. I mean, books are heavy, and it's just, where do you find a place that you can afford? Well, one day she was driving around, and it was very serendipitous. She was listening to a White Sox game, and it had gone into the 19th inning or something like that, and she was listening to it on her car radio on the edge of her seat. And so instead of coming home, she decided to drive around the block a couple times until the game was over. And she didn't normally come down this street, but she came down and she saw a man on a ladder in the window putting up a for rent sign. And she had apparently, smarter than me, had an eye on this building. There had been a computer repair store in here. And it was in fact the owner of the building, who had the computer repair store, who had decided that he did not have to have front and center Main Street location for people to drop their computers off and pick them up. So that it was not an efficient use of a nice building like this right in a central location. So he had decided to rent it, and it was just that very evening that he put the sign up. And Jill got out and she looked down and she came home and she said, "Get in the car." I said, "What?" She said, "Get in the car. Got to go look at something. I have something to show you." So we came in and we peered through the window at this long tunnel of a store. It was at that point broken up by various halfway up walls and office cubicles and everything like that. But we could tell it was just the right shape for a bookstore. And so we contacted the owner. The phone number was on the window, and apparently we were the first ones to call. And we told him what we did and what we wanted to have here, a bookstore, and he liked the idea. And very quickly we negotiated to an agreement. I understand that subsequent to that there were like 6 or 8 other businesses that said, "We'll pay you more," and he had made an agreement with us and he stuck to it. And I think we've certainly been happy for the years we've been here, and I think he's happy with us as a tenant. So it worked out very well. Moving the bookstore was quite a labor.
I bet.
But my whole family jumped in, and I think we got a quote of $10,000 with to move the bookstore.
Really?
And they made it very clear that it might well go well above that, depending on how many loads they had to take. They were having a hard time estimating, and it was just a no-brainer. We couldn't afford that. We were moving, been pretty much beleaguered in our location in Hyde Park, and just sort of hand-to-mouth existence. So we had to figure out how do we move on a shoestring.
Yeah.
So we basically rented a 26-foot U-Haul truck. We got all the people in our family on board, and we took 9 trips between here and Chicago. And the trucks were loaded, the whole bottom would be loaded with shopping bags full of books labeled the different subjects that they'd come out of, philosophy or Civil War history or children's books. And then on top we had these bookcases, a lighter load. So every time we'd come with a load, we'd unload the bookcases, put them in place, get the bags out, and then go back for another load. I had my staff who had decided not to follow me out here. I kept them on prior to severance, loading the books and labeling the bags and everything. So we had a real efficient operation, and we actually got it done within a week and a half, I think. Everything moved out here.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite a story.
We didn't have to write a check for $10,000-$15,000 either, which was good.
And you have people who come here on a mission, I bet.
Yeah. Bookstores are I wanted to mention to you, I've just heard that booksellers have been put on the endangered species list.
I'm not surprised.
And there aren't too many of us left, especially these classic bookshops that are, have a wide range, general, used, and antiquarian books. There's not too many people who run a business like this anymore. This is a very 19th century sort of thing. Yes, we have a modern cash register and whatever, but other than that, we're pretty much doing business the way it was done 100 years ago. We buy books and we mark them, we put them out, and, the whole thing just keeps rolling. My
mother would love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my uncle, who was ended up finally being head of the West Suburban Library System in Chicago.
Really?
But he was a 3-year-old who went like this and said to his mother, "What's this?" Reading the New York Times. What's this word? What's this word?
Yeah.
And he rebuilt the Oak Park Library.
Wow.
Took the library out, housed it someplace else while they built the library and put it all back. And
so you have books in your blood too.
I've got books in my blood.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, it's been a good life, and I expect it. My health is good. I love what I do. I still, I enjoy engaging with interesting adventures, going out and looking through an attic full of books that hadn't seen the light of day for 50 years. I enjoy encountering people in the shop. Actually, bookstore seems to be a magnet for the very most interesting people, and all the boring people seem not to have an interest in bookshops. I don't know why that is, but they don't. And so I rue the day when I don't have that constant contact with. Both the adventure of discovery and the satisfaction of saving things. Very often we are called out to a place, and maybe it's one member of the family who dawned on maybe we shouldn't just throw these in the dumpster. And so they call me in and they show me some books, and I start looking at them, and then I look over to the side and there's some garbage cans, and I say, "What's that stuff over there?" "Oh, that's just some old Civil War letters from some old grandpa. We're just throwing those away." And I'm able to, that's actually happened. I'm actually able to save history. And this has happened dozens of times in one way or another over the years, where my practiced eye brought upon the scene has saved things from the landfill.
Thank you.
So it's when eyes like this no longer are trained or exist or are in the environment, the flood of things being lost is going to increase. and much will be lost. But
It's true.
for now, I'm out there, and I still, on a regular basis, find things that, without a place like this to come to, people would just despair and just discard.
So if people all of a sudden are seeing this and thinking, oh, I have some things, how
That's right.
should they reach you?
Well, they would just give a call here to the shop. We're in the online. They can email us, books@ogarawilson.com. We're located at 223 Broadway in downtown Chesterton. Our phone number is 219-728-1326. And I get sometimes 5-6 calls a day of people who it's occurred to them that there's this used bookstore, and I have used books, and they came from Grandma's house, and maybe somebody might be interested in them. I always encourage people to have family take things first. There's no place where those books will have more meaning than with the family they've come along with all through the years. But people cannot incorporate, past lives into their own life, assuming they have some kind of a life of their own. So a lot of things can be carried along through generations and fit, but not everything. So after the family has had at it and selected a few tokens to bring into their life, then the other things can be offered, and there'll be people out there that don't have that kind of heritage or have an interest in a particular subject or book. And
Okay, train's gone.
Trains, yeah, Train City. People who will, come in the shop and see a curiosity at a reasonable price, and they'll buy it. So I get, as I was saying, 8-9 calls a day sometimes that people have with small groups of books. I just say, come on down. And they bring in a couple boxes, and I look at them, and if I think it's a good fit for the shop, I will pay them a price that's agreeable to me and to them, and I'll mark them at a price that hopefully will be agreeable to potential buyers. There's a circumstance now, ever since the internet, and this is actually what put a lot of used bookstores out of business, is the idea that you can order up books on the internet, used books. There's several sites, and the problem for used bookstores that actually pay for books and have expenses and employees and light bills and things like that is that a lot of the people selling books online are in fact those Salvation Armies and Goodwills. So we are competing with all our expenses. We're competing with people who get their stock for free, who have a tax-free status, probably very little rent. They probably own their building, and volunteer labor to put them online.
Wow.
And that's somehow I have to find that little area where I can still make enough money to keep body and soul together.
To eat.
To eat, yes.
And to pay for gas
And
now.
competing against people who have no skin in the game, so to speak.
Right.
So it's I can see why a lot of people went out of the business if they were already 56 years old or something like that, and decided that it's just too much of a hassle. Rather than pass the business along or continue trying, they just retired or went into some other line. But we were able to make it. Early on, I saw that challenge, and I think I was probably in my 50s, old, and too old to go back and start a new profession or so, I thought. And had little kids. And so it wasn't an option for me to just throw the towel in. So I had to make it. So I had to have a strategy. And at that time, a lot of people were exclusively putting books online. So I said, okay, well, we have the shop. So we have people coming in and buying books from the shop. We can also put books online. and certain things that are either high price or we might not have customers for them because they're so highly specialized. Those sorts of books we can put online. And if we have a slow day in the shop, maybe we'll get a couple orders. We also decided to develop relationships with auction houses. Occasionally in the book trade, you get an item which is just really world class. We've had John Milton documents signed by him. We've had Abraham Lincoln signatures. We've had Frederick Douglass letters. Just wonderful things. And you really can't put them in the window and say, here, I want $15,000 for this, in a little side street bookstore in Indiana especially, and expect that someone's going to just walk by and say, I'll take it. So we've developed relationships with auction houses in New York and whatever. And so basically we developed a strategy that I term, the three-legged stool. One leg is shop sales, another leg is auction, and the third leg is online sales. And as you can imagine with a three-legged stool, if you take one leg away, it falls over.
Oh, yeah.
So
you're not taking one leg away.
No, so we weathered the storm in that manner by just applying every different way to sell books we could do, and it was apparently a winning strategy because we're still standing.
There you
we're still
go.
There. So recently we stopped pretty much pushing it online because it's highly labor intensive, and the shop has taken on a life of its own. We're well established in this location.
Mm-hmm. People come here.
Couldn't say that in the early years. It was a rough go. Yeah, but now we've sort of taken on a life of our own, and people are repeat customers, and life is good.
I love that. My mother would be so happy.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad. A book lover. Yeah, we have lots of people that come and are appreciative and effusive in their praise. That it smells so great in here, and it just has such an ambiance to it, whatever. And I have to admit, we sort of emphasize that.
You cater to that.
Yeah, we cater to that.
Good.
We know that being old-fashioned, we're not going so far in kitschy as being ye oldie bookstory, but it's just a natural fit that the more wood, the more leather, the more natural fibers, and
right.
Just everything. It just feels
real
and more homey to me, and it apparently resonates with a lot of our customers too. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Well, you're welcome. I hope this gives some insight into why a place like this is and why we exist and how we enjoy what we do.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Creating from the heart, the artistry of living. If you have an idea about someone else I could interview, please let me know. See you next time.